Christian churches, today is the first Sunday of Advent. For those of us who didn't grow up in a Christian tradition, or maybe you need a reminder, Advent is the 4 weeks leading up to the birth of the baby Jesus. It is understood as a time of anticipation, preparation, and of waiting for the coming of the Messiah. Now, I think it's important for us to know that Advent is not mentioned in the Bible or in any of the early church records. Of course, neither is the date of Jesus's birth. Advent probably began in the 4th century, and for hundreds of years, it was not a time of shopping, decorating, and partying, but instead a time of fasting and self-reflection, similar to the way Muslims celebrate Ramadan today. Our Christian neighbors will be reminded today about Jesus's return and the end of time as we know it, not Jesus's birth. Diana Butler Bass wrote, quote, "For Christians, Advent is not the time of opening up little windows with chocolates as we await the really big booty of presents under the tree on Christmas morning. That is not what we're waiting for. We are waiting for light, for God to renew and heal the world, a promise that we understood to have been mysteriously embodied in a baby born in a manger." Chapter 13 in the Gospel of Mark is usually the lectionary reading for Advent. It's called a passion narrative, foretelling a religious, political, and environmental apocalypse. Jesus warns the disciples that religious and political authorities are likely to prosecute them and persecute them for their beliefs in the days ahead. Yet there are also some messages of hope in Mark 13. The community is asked to look for signs of Jesus's return, just as they look to the budding of the fig tree to know that summer is near. The text says, since no one knows when the Messiah will return, people must be ever vigilant. It's kind of an ominous part of the gospel, but I like the ending of Mark 13. Jesus says to the disciples after all those warnings, "And what I say to you, I say to all, keep awake." Keep awake. That's a message that could be helpful as we enter these next 4 busy weeks of December. The questions raised metaphorically by Advent are at heart religious questions. What's waiting to happen next in your life? What are the signs that joy is coming? Are you preparing for the birth of something new? Are you living your life so you'll be ready for the end of the time on earth? Waiting and the call to keep awake is foundational to many religions. As you'll hear through our worship services throughout December, ancient religions responded to the growing darkness with sacred days of anticipation, centered on bringing light to shorter, darker days. Diwali, Bodhi Day, winter solstice, Hanukkah, and Christmas all have elements in their stories about bringing light, literally and metaphorically, into the world at dark times. Paying attention, keeping awake, is a central message in many religions. In Judaism, the words to its most important prayer begin, Shema Israel, listen, Israel, hear, pay attention. You may know that the word Buddha translates to awakened one. There's a Buddhist legend which provides that background. The Buddha is met on the road by a student. The student, recognizing something special about him, says, "My friend, what are you? Are you a god or a celestial being?" "No," said the Buddha. "Well, then, are you a magician or a wizard?" Again, the Buddha answered, "No." "Are you a man?" "No." "Well," the young man said, "what are you?" And the Buddha replied, "I am awake. I am awake." Now, of course, we are not Jesus or Buddha, although we can and might reflect on them as exemplars for our own lives. But we can seek to be more awake, more engaged in our daily lives. We can work to quiet our minds and distracted thoughts and bring our full attention to the present moment. The Reverend Frederick Buechner, who's one of my favorite modern theologians, he's a Presbyterian, and he wrote a lot in the 20th century. has a wonderful passage in his book, Whistling in the Dark, about this. He writes, quote, "From the simplest lyric to the most complex novel and densest drama, literature asks us to pay attention. Pay attention to the frog. Pay attention to the West Wing. Pay attention to the boy on the raft, the lady in the tower, the old man in the sea. In sum, pay attention to the world and all that dwells within, and thereby, at last, pay attention to yourself and all that dwells within." So the center story of the Advent is about waiting for the Messiah, and something that I'm guessing may seem irrelevant to most of us Unitarian Universalists, but perhaps this ancient legend will help you relate. There was once an old stone monastery tucked away in the middle of a forest. For many years, people would make significant detours to seek out this monastery, and the peaceful spirit of the place was healing for the soul. In recent years, however, fewer and fewer people were making their way to the monastery. The monks had grown jealous and petty in their relationships with one another, and their animosity was felt by those who visited. The gardens were overgrown, the furniture old and decaying, and the music was pretty perfunctory. The abbot of the monastery was distressed by what was happening, and he poured out his heart to his good friend, Rabbi Jeremiah. Rabbi Jeremiah told the abbot that he had had a dream the night before that the Messiah was living at the monastery among the monks. The abbot was flabbergasted. One among his own was the Messiah? Who could he be? He knew it wasn't him. He wasn't that good a person. But who? So he raced back to the monastery after meeting with Rabbi Jeremiah, and he shared this exciting news with the other monks. One among us is the Messiah. The monks grew silent as they looked into each other's face. Which one was the Messiah? Not I, thought Brother John, who supervised the gardens. I'm not spiritual enough. Not I, said Father Mike, who led the singing. I'm not learned enough. Not I, said Father Bob. I'm not pastoral enough. Not I, said the cook. Surely it's not me. So who could it be? And then something magical started to happen. From that day on, the mood in the monastery changed. Joseph and Ivan started to talk to each other again, not wanting to be guilty of slighting the Messiah. Pierre and Ahmad left behind their anger and sought out forgiveness. The gardeners began to work harder together because, after all, one of them might just be the Messiah. The singers, the board of directors, the RE committee, the worship committee, the membership teams, everyone began doing their job just a bit better, just in case. But even more importantly, the monks began serving each other, looking out for opportunities to assist, seeking healing and forgiveness, just in case the other person turned out to be the Messiah. And then one traveler and another found their way to the monastery. Word soon spread about this remarkable spirit of this place. The sanctuary was beautiful and filled with people once again. The music filled the spirits. The food was fantastic. Everyone was so lovely to new visitors. People once again took the journey to the monastery and found themselves renewed and transformed. All because the monks knew the Messiah was among them. It's a good story, right? What if it's true for us right now? So that brings me back to the spirit of Advent. So I'm going to ask you, make a promise to yourself to be awake, to live intentionally during these next few weeks. Let go of those December activities on your to-do list that don't feed your soul, but do the ones that do. If you don't want to write holiday cards or bake hundreds of cookies, don't, even if that's what you've always done. Decide if you love seeing the Nutcracker or if this is the year you're finally going to say no. Watch It's a Wonderful Life or White Christmas with your family because you can't wait to see it again, or skip it and read a book. If you enjoy shopping, by all means. If you don't, shop online or don't shop at all. Eat the wonderful foods that you enjoy, but skip the fruitcake unless you really like it. Each one of us only has a finite number of Decembers left. And I want you to remember, treat everyone as if they are the Messiah. Everyone as if they were made in God's image, because whether you believe in God or not, everyone deserves to be treated that way. Everyone. I hope you will practice patience in your waiting, compassion and kindness in all of your interactions. And may we all be awake to the joy of the coming months. Amen. So may it be.